By the authority invested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. Prayer for council? I think we did a prayer first, right?
Please rise for the prayer. O divine Master, in deep humility, we place ourselves, our thoughts, our plans in thy hands. We beg thee to fill our minds and our wills with the gifts of wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, and piety. Help us not think of self or personal desires, but rather consider the responsibilities laid upon us. Help us promote as far as possible the welfare of our people and to treat them with impartiality and justice. Grant us the power to set a good example in thought, word, and deed, so that thy blessings will be showered upon us and the people we represent. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Tutino.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Sokolowski.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Stokely.
Here.
Vice President Flanagan. Absent. President Leonard.
Present.
Mayor Aronson.
Present.
The first item on tonight's agenda is public hearing on the 200 block of Washington Street, Millennium Block A, Millennium 4, conditional use application. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Madam President. If we could go on the record, please. This is the scheduled date and time for the conditional use hearing for the applicant Millennium Waterfront Associates LP for the property located on the 200 block of Washington Street, known as Millennium Block A. The property is zoned SP2 zoning district. The applicant is requesting conditional use approval pursuant to section 27-1503 of the Conshohocken zoning ordinance as amended, and proposes to construct a 617,000 square foot office building with a height of up to 230 feet. Council is familiar with this application. It was last before you in December when it was continued, last before you in January, on January 18th, when it was continued to March 21st, 2018. March 21st, 2018, we had a winter storm. Your meeting was canceled, and so we were unable to go on the record at that time and were forced to re-advertise. This matter was advertised on March 1st, 2018, and on March 8th, 2018 in the Times Herald. I have been in contact with counsel for both the applicants and other interested parties. All parties, again, request a continuance, although this matter has been continued several times. Because all parties agree to the continuance, I would recommend granting the continuance, and the continuance would be to June 20th, 2018 at 7:00 p.m. here in Borough Hall in Council Chambers, 400 Fayette Street, Conshohocken Borough. Because we are announcing it on the record, the matter will not be re-advertised. I just need a motion from someone on council to grant the continuance again to that date.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
With that, we will close the hearing and thank our court reporter.
The next item on the agenda is to conduct interviews for the Dog Park Advisory Committee. There are currently three vacancies for one-year terms. The first applicant is Jessica Roth.
Come on up. You can just sit
You can
down.
have a seat, yeah. Jessica, why would you like to serve as a member of the board or commission?
I'd like to be involved in the community. I also have a dog that will be attending and learning all the other little puppies at the dog park. So it'd be really great to have a say in what happens there.
What do you believe your role on this committee would look like as?
I guess it would be helping to decide administrative tasks having to do with the dog park and basically the benefit of the dogs going and playing, making sure that they're safe, ensuring that they can have a good time.
Have you been able to attend any of the meetings?
No, we actually just recently learned about it, probably like a month ago, so we didn't really go through it again.
Okay. They have a lot underway,
Okay.
so I think we can put you in touch with,
Okay, great.
to learn about it regardless.
Great.
Do you have any particular issues that you think need to be addressed?
Not at the moment,
Okay.
no.
Anyone else have any questions?
What would you like to accomplish as a member?
I just want to make sure that it's a safe place for all the dogs in the borough to come and play and, get some exercise.
Okay.
Well, thank you for volunteering.
Our next applicant is Nicholas Sorelli?
Yes.
Oh, I got that. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay. Good evening. And why would you like to serve as a member on the Dog Park Advisory Commission?
I'm just looking for ways to get involved in the community, and I've been a dog owner my whole life, so I'm very passionate about dogs, and just think that this would be a great way to get involved.
How did you learn about the commission? Thank you.
From their social media, the dog park was advertising for the vacancies, and we've been in communication. I have a dog, and we've been in communication with their social media before. So
Have you had your dog in the dog park at all?
actually, no. When we signed up, right after we got the code, it closed down.
Okay.
So I think it's undergoing maintenance right now.
Okay.
So unfortunately, not yet.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Are there any issues that you think that need to be addressed?
Not at this time.
Not yet, yeah.
I'd be willing to, look into whatever issues the rest of the committee would think would be good to talk about.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If council does so desire, I would need a motion to appoint Jessica Roth and Nicholas Sorelli to the Dog Park Advisory Committee.
So is it we have 3 positions
We
and
do.
2, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries?
Thank you. Congratulations.
The next item on the agenda is to approve and adopt April 4th and April 18th meeting minutes, and to approve the April ending treasurer's report and accounts payable in the amount of $469,115.10. I will need a motion for this.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is consider approving ordinance number 03-218, Vehicle and Traffic Ordinance Amendment. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Madam President. This ordinance was advertised and is ready for your consideration this evening. We spoke about it at our last meeting, but to remind everyone, it is an ordinance which would effectuate certain changes to the parking regulations within the borough, and those changes are to prohibit parking on Walnut Street, and that is from the northern intersection with East Hector Street north to a no parking sign that will be installed, and from the southern intersection with East Hector Street south to a no parking sign that will be installed. To establish certain special purpose parking zones, municipal employee parking 16 spaces on East Elm between Jones and Walnut Streets, 2 municipal employee parking spaces on East 6th between Harry Street and Hollowell Street, and red zone permit parking between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue on Forest Street. It also provides for handicap parking spaces, 2 spaces on Hollowell Street between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue, These changes have been reviewed by administration. I know that your Public Works Director is here if you have any questions. And again, it was properly advertised and is properly before you this evening for consideration.
Any questions from council?
Do we need to bring that up?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
Okay. On that note, I would need a motion to adopt ordinance number 03-2018, Vehicle and Traffic Ordinance Amendment.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Under new business, consider 161 Washington Street Zoning Hearing Board application. Ms. Stetler, if you could come up, please, for that.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard. 161 Washington Street, also known as 8 Tower Bridge, has a history in the borough. It is in the SP2 zoning district and is a 15-story office building over parking and a 7-story garage next door to it. When this was built and went through the zoning and planning process around 1999, 2000, certain flood-proofing variances were granted to the site. They were mainly aimed at the parking that was under the building, and it was supported by hydrology and hydrological studies. Later, as happened in many of the Tower Bridge buildings, a food vendor was located in the buildings, and that was permitted because it was a permitted use in the underlying zoning district. That was under the prior zoning ordinance before 2001, and the floodplain conservation district in that particular ordinance was different. The borough revised its floodplain ordinance. The current proposal is to locate a cafe in the lobby of 8 Tower Bridge, which would replace what they consider the existing cafe. The existing cafe appears to be geared much more towards takeout. The new cafe would have seating and other amenities in addition to that. The petitioner is disputing the decision of the zoning officer that any relief at all is needed. Under the new floodplain conservation district, this is not a permitted use in the floodplain. The petitioner indicates that the cafe does not meet the definition of construction, alteration, or improvement, therefore should be permitted, and also they are disputing that they need any relief for floodproofing. The new cafe is a larger size. It is in a different location. It is not an extension of an existing use, and it does seem to fall under the definition of a renovation. It seems to be a renovation of the lobby. The variances granted earlier for the building were primarily, again, geared towards the parking area. The new floodplain ordinance would require that the area be flood-proofed or elevated. The lobby is not above the base flood elevation, and so therefore the area should be flood-proofed. In the alternate, the applicant is asking for variances if the zoning board should decide that the zoning officer's determination was correct. Mr. Careless is here to represent 161 Washington Street, and he can explain his project to you.
You can use that.
Good evening. Thank you
Good
for the
evening.
opportunity to be here. As Ms. Stoller said, I represent the applicant. And she laid out the project for you. Can you hear me okay? Okay. The property has been in existence since 2001, and as Ms. Stetler explained, we have an existing cafe in the building known as Barson's Deli that's been in use since 2004. It was a by right approval in 2004, and what we're proposing is an expansion of the existing deli into a new space in the lobby. I have some handouts here, and also I'm going to project them for your benefit and the public's. Give you a minute to pass those around. As Ms. Stetler explained, our goal here is to expand the cafe in order to accommodate additional seating, provide an expanded food menu. What you have before you here, and also I'll go through these as they're projected, these are architectural renderings of the proposed cafe. And then up here you have what we've provided is, this is the existing floor plan, if you're looking at it on your left-hand side, against the proposed use plan. You'll see I'm going to move over here. The existing cafe is here with ancillary workroom storage here, and what we're proposing is to move it here with also a workroom. You'll note we are taking 4 parking spaces. The property has approximately 1,200 parking spaces. Your ordinance requires approximately 980, so even though utilizing those 4 spaces would be no problem. Here is just an isolated floor plan of the new use, the new floor plan, excuse me. And the same with a key plan. We're proposing the same number of employees, about 2 employees. There would be business hours, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. to accommodate the patrons of the building. This is a by right use in the SP2 district. However, as Ms. Stetler explained, the need for an interpretation arises because we are in the floodplain conservation district. We have proactively and protectively appealed the interpretation. The alternative, we have requested the variances in order to move forward with this project. And also to flood-proof the building. When the property was approved back in 1999, we did get relief for flood-proofing. The testimony would be largely the same, that we believe that leaving the area unflood-proof would promote natural drainage. And we, like I said, we will present testimony to that effect at the zoning hearing board. We haven't had issues. Like I said, this property has been continuously in use and since 2004, especially the deli. Again, this is a de minimis increase in our opinion. It's approximately 2.9% of an increase of the enclosed space of the lobby. We will present testimony that this will not increase the base flood elevation, and the new construction can withstand floodwater. So with that, I will, we have questions. I do have Kevin Bergmeyer, Esther Pulver, and Mark Altrogi here is our engineer, if any questions.
Anyone in council have questions? Mr. Peters?
Seeing no questions from council, with respect to this application, it's appropriately before you because, as you know, you consider all zoning applications. My office will be attending with Ms. Stetler to defend her determination. So with respect to the determination, I would recommend that you not take a position because I will be defending them, and I certainly don't want you taking a position that's contrary to me. With respect to the relief that's requested from the floodplain district, administratively, we would recommend that you not take a position with respect to that either, only because FEMA monitors the relief in the borough so closely. So we'd prefer that you leave it to the zoning hearing board to decide. So with respect to this application, no action is necessary unless you choose to take action. But it would be my recommendation that you let the zoning hearing board do its job.
Okay. Anyone from council have any questions?
No.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
The next item on the agenda. Am I wrong, Brittany? Okay. Is consider 130 West Fifth Avenue zoning hearing board application. Ms. Stetler, I will refer to you again.
Thank you. This is the old St. Cosmas and Damian School. It has been located in the borough since at least 1940, and it has always been a non-conforming use in a residential neighborhood. When the school closed, it became Conshohocken Catholic Early Education Center, and a daycare center was approved in, I think, 2016 to allow daycare to be added to nursery school and kindergarten there. When the churches in Conshohocken were consolidated, St. Matthew's took over this, moved the operation to their community center on Fayette Street. In 2017, an application was approved for a daycare center for a multilingual daycare summer camp program that extended through the whole building. The original daycare was only on the ground level. There was an extension granted to the zoning relief, and eventually the daycare provider, Princeton Education Incorporated, withdrew from the project. The owners of the property are Howe Properties, and they did seek another daycare center which could be could use the building. Not finding one, they began to explore other options for the building, which brings us to their current proposal. Their current proposal is to change the non-conforming use of the building to a mixed-use residential office building. There would be 2 office areas and 5 residential units in the building. In order to accomplish this, they will require a change of non-conforming use, a special exception, and also the property will not support the number of off-street parking spaces required for the combined uses. So they will be looking for a special exception for a change in non-conforming use and variances for off-street parking. And Mr. Campbell is here to represent Howe Properties and answer any of your questions.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to represent the Howe Group. In the front row is Gary Jones, Mike Stanton, and the project's engineer, Jeff Watson. My name is Ed Campbell. It's a pleasure to be here. And Chris has adequately and accurately summarized the application. This is the old Cosmos and Damien School. So before the Howe Group contacted me, over the last 3 years, I've probably been contacted by various interested parties who were looking to acquire it from the Archdiocese, and I can say that every one of those groups or entities that contacted me, they would tell me what they want to do there, and I would tell them, I don't think you have a prayer, right? Because the intensity of the use that was proposed in the earlier developments was radically different than what this is. And so I'm personally pleased to be able to make this presentation because I think this is a far more modest adaptation of the site and the property, and I think it's far more balanced than some other initial people who came in and kicked the tires, so to speak. So what my client's proposing is to convert the building to 5 residential units. One of them would be on the first floor. The other 4 would be on the third floor. The remainder of the space on the first and second floor would be just over 8,000 square feet of office. Now, what's contemplated there would be office. At the moment, it's contemplated to be a real estate office, and the intention and the belief is that it's, as office space goes, it's a relatively low-impact office, right? People who are working there, if you're in a real estate office, you're not doing a lot of good or making a lot of money, generating a lot of sales, sitting behind a desk. You're usually out on the street and working. So it's not going to be an office that generates high-intensity volume of traffic, either foot traffic or vehicular traffic. The other nice thing about the application is that it blends or balances 2 uses that would complement each other, right? So you've got residential that are there, and get up and leave in the morning and come home at night, and then the office would use that space primarily, when the residents aren't there. So there's a complementary use in terms of traffic patterns and the parking demand. The site is really challenged when it comes to parking. And so we're making an application for 2 reasons. One is under your code, you're allowed to change from one non-conforming use to another pursuant to special exception. That's one of the reasons that brings us here. And the other is that we will need a variance for parking. Now, if I can do this correctly, they didn't teach me everything in law school. There we go. Go to the next one, right? So there's an overview of the Howe Group. I know they own other properties here in the borough. I believe many of you may be familiar with them. My next picture. Those are some other projects they've done here in the borough. Right. So those are 2 pictures. I can't imagine anyone's not familiar with the site. And so those are 2 views. All right. There's an aerial view. This aerial view I think is most interesting, right? Because you get a sense of the parking area that's proposed will be here and through this easement area. Now, let's go through the rest of the, let's leave that up. So you have a board, right? We don't have it, I have a handout, if I can hand it out.
Sure.
Let's- So this would depict, when the application was submitted, this is what we proposed. There would be 8 parking spaces created on the site, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a handicap spot. Now, parking, that's one of the reasons we need the variance, because that would satisfy the parking obligation for the residential or the office. And so that's what prompted for the property to make a request for the variance. I can tell you that there's 2 sort of interesting components of what my client's proposing. One is that my client has under agreement and is negotiating with the other side, sorry. It's not colored up, but my client has 126? 126 under agreement. So, and my client hopes to close on that property. And so instead of the 8 spaces that are shown on the other plan, if my client is able to close on that, we never believe that we would have that additional property. That additional property, along with the property in between, which we'll talk about in a minute, would provide an opportunity for over 20 parking spaces to be on the site. I really think that makes it significant. Now, let's talk about the parking, the spaces that are in between. This is really an unusual situation. There is a 10-foot wide sliver of land right here, and a 20-foot wide sliver of land right here. The 20-foot wide sliver, if you look back at the pictures from either the aerial photos of, right, great. The area in red, that's already enclosed by a fence, and it's probably been enclosed by a fence, Chris said since the 1940s, whatever. It's been enclosed by a fence. That sliver of property is actually owned by the borough. And the property immediately next to it, in blue, is also owned by the borough, appears to be used by the owner of 126. So I had a brief conversation with Mr. Peters about this. I would take the position, and Mr. Peters didn't agree or disagree with me, but he said, I understand the position, that there's an easement there. And that easement's existed for probably 7 years. And what I would like the opportunity to do is to work over the next week or 10 days with Mr. Peters to sort of document that and formalize it. So for forever and a day, the borough has allowed people to use the property. It doesn't appear that there's any instrument involved which would make sure that the borough is held harmless, that the property is insured and you're an additional insured, and that to the extent that there needs to be compensation reflected, that you get something out of the benefit of letting other people use your property. So I would like to work, I'd like your permission to work with Mr. Peters to try to formalize what I believe already exists, which is an easement. And then we'd like to go to the zoning hearing board in June, and we would like, in a perfect world, we'd love you to send Mr. Peters to say, please give them the relief they want. We think this is a great project and we want it. We understand that that's an unusual thing for the borough council to do, so we'd like you to stay neutral. And the last thing we want you to do is to go and oppose it, because we think it's a great project, it's a great opportunity to repurpose an asset in the community in a way that respects the character of the neighborhood. That's the summary. I'm happy to invite any of my clients who'd like to offer anything else, or if you have questions for me, we're happy to.
I have a question.
Sure.
You don't intend to, what's that?
It's Harry tonight.
Good, how you doing? How you been? You don't intend to exit or enter the entrance into the alley, right?
I'll ask my clients that, but I believe that's all the use the one way out. So we would not enter into the,
You understand that's owned by the residents, that alley. So each of the residents own half of that alley, so you would be going through their property. So, I don't know what you could, maybe you could make some kind of agreement to pave the alley and do some upgrades to the alley, because we don't want, I mean, you're gonna be running a lot of cars through there, and people have kids back there and things like that. So,
I understand the issue, and I'll talk to my client, and we'll
okay.
understand loud and clear.
In the original plan, the 8 parking spaces, are they on the red zone?
Yes.
Okay, so without that, that original plan wouldn't work either. You wouldn't have the space for the parking.
Right, as I said, I believe that an easement exists by virtue of the fact that it's been used for forever. So an easement by
Okay.
prescription. But yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, the church and the school use that land for forever, forever.
And then we're looking at 5 residents,
5 units, yeah.
5 units, 2-bedroom units?
So the mix of the units are there's 1 one-bedroom, 3 two-bedrooms, and 1 three-bedroom.
So the reality is more than 1 car per unit.
So your code requires 1.5 spaces for every 1 bedroom, and 2 for everything else. So doing that math, we're required to have 10 spaces. The original plan that I showed shows 8. The alternative preferred plan shows 22.
Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Peters?
Yeah, the only comment I'll make, Ed did reach out to me, and this applicant has been proactive as soon as they realized that the land was owned by the borough. If council is inclined to consider the concept of an easement, I certainly would prefer for it to be formalized and for there to be provisions in place to protect the borough. Actually selling that property, which is something Ed and I tossed around but in no way committed to, you'd have to go through an advertising and bidding process, which would not only be complicated, but wouldn't necessarily be in the best interest of the borough in terms of making sure that this property is put to productive use. So, council this evening, this is an application that you can take a position with respect to if you'd like to. You would take a position both with respect to the relief for a change from one nonconforming use to the other. You can take a position with respect to the request for parking variance relief. You don't have to take the same position with respect to the two of them, and of course, you can take no position at all if you so choose.
So we can take a position on recommending to zoning with the understanding that the property owned by the borough is still going to be negotiated.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I would expect, if Ed and I have an issue over the course of the next few days, I always have the flexibility to contact the zoning hearing board and tell them that we still have something to work through, so.
And I got one more question. You're acquiring the property on your front page here where the pickup truck is? Is that the property you're acquiring?
Yes, correct.
And it goes from the curb all the way back to the alley, correct, that property?
Correct.
Which in its current condition is close to falling down. Like that.
Yeah, I know the property, I know the
Yeah, me
property.
too.
There's a pool there that's on the borough's property.
We could have all went swimming.
How did the borough didn't know they had a pool?
I know. That's not a good thing.
We gotta send Chris over there.
No, but that's the kind of thing that the value of that is, you don't want a pool on your land.
Right.
Correct.
Um,
We do not, no.
So you're going to be doing this building like the one that you're in right now?
Yeah, so we
Which-
certainly have precedence for it, that it works
Yeah.
very well with the two opposing
Exactly.
uses in our existing building.
Right.
Where we ironically have, I think, 22 or 24 parking spots,
Right.
5 apartments and like 5,000 square feet of commercial space.
Yeah.
So,
You have 5 apartments in that building?
Yeah, they have fun.
yeah, there are 5 apartments and there are 4 3-bedrooms and 1
Oh, really?
2-bedroom.
Yep.
That are in that building currently. Yeah. And less real street parking there because there's the garages across the street from
Right.
it.
Right.
And so that's more challenged from a parking standpoint than this is in terms of what
Correct.
you can do on the street. And we don't have any issues with anybody there. I think that it's pretty clear that these two uses together allow, specifically if we can get the 22 parking spots for this to work without a huge impact on the neighborhood at night, where people want to park up and down the street.
Right.
Talking about the impact on the parking, if you guys would think about who you rent to also, because we're having a real parking problem in the borough. And we're having, with people having apartments and homes and they rent them, and there's 5 people in the house, and then 5 more people come for the weekend, and we have 5, 6 cars on the street. So, I mean,
So, yeah, so one of the good news is, with us at least, and our apartments that we have, if you would come up, I could show you the profile of our tenants. We get some families, they come in because they want to use the little bigger apartments that we have. We have a mix of people that aren't, like, we're not renting to a 21-year-old kid that just graduated from college that wants to party in Conshohocken and be able to walk to his house, right? Like, that's not our tenant base.
I couldn't say that, but that's what I'm.
Actually, Bob, you really couldn't say what you just did, so let's move on.
My claims talk about everyone who summers in Conshohocken.
That's
I used
it.
to have a T-shirt that I summer in Conshohocken.
Yeah,
I still
we're
have
still
them.
around.
Anyone else on council have any questions? Okay, on that, I would need a motion approving sending a letter of recommendation to the zoning hearing board on behalf of Howe Properties.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Just give me a call as soon as you can. We'll keep working through it.
Parking spaces, please.
The next item on the agenda is consider authorizing the return of donations to the Conshohocken Community Garden. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Madam President. As we continue with new administration to work through both our ordinances and all aspects of borough administration, we identified monies that are being held that are not the boroughs. They belong to a 501c7, if I'm not incorrect, organization. Those funds need to be released to the organization. Staff, as part of our protocol, comes to council for requests of items that are not budgeted for. Although this was not budgeted for, again, it is not our money and should be returned to the appropriate entity. So we would like a motion authorizing the release of $2,500 to the Conshohocken Community Garden.
Question on the motion.
Please.
Why were we holding the money? How did it get there?
Bob, I do not have a specific answer for that.
Bob, I can say that this is in line with some of the things we addressed at the last meeting that Ms. Checo and the administration has been trying to clean up that were left from our previous.
I believe it was part of a partnership with the garden. The monies were deposited because I believe the garden did not have a bank account set up. But it's time to get this out of our coffers.
So they do have the appropriate bank account for us
They
to
do.
send the money back.
They do.
I think we gave them that money when they started the garden. How long's it been there, do you know?
I'm not sure, Bob. I don't have a
Because
specific
we-
answer.
4 years?
Yeah, we were given,
It's been a little while.
Paul McConnell could probably tell us how that money got there,
Well,
because he was in charge, I think he's still involved in it.
either way, we probably should give it back to them.
You know who's in?
I don't know if anyone has taken over for him yet.
Oh, we gotta give it back in.
Yeah, either way, it's their money.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll communicate that to Ms. Checo.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is considering authorizing the tuition reimbursement for Detective William Walter. This is part of the collective bargaining agreement, and we need a motion to authorize the reimbursement for Detective William Walter.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Okay.
We have the date again on the wedding for information, that's why we can't.
Yes, you sure can. So it is June 20th at 7:00 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, no public comment. Mayor Yarenson, do you have any comments this evening?
Are we sure there's no public comment? Come up to the podium. We're a friendly group.
Hi, Council. Joe Robinson, 713 Spring Mill Avenue. I spoke to you last month about conditions on the Schuylkill River Trail, and brought some friends this month or this meeting to kind of expand on that, on some of those concerns we had. So, Christy, I know you were kind of up on this.
Sure. Hi, Christy Campbell, 112 Wood Street. Been a Conshohocken resident and trail user for the past 13 years. So what we have here is looking at Ash, Poplar, and Cherry Streets, and how they connect to the trail. So I myself, for the past 13 years, I know trail safety has gotten increasingly worse. People are more busy than they were in 2005, and people are driving distracted. So these three particular intersections, when cars are coming down from Fayette towards the river, so as they're approaching these intersections, views are obstructed, and their sole focus is looking at the train tracks to see if a train's coming and trying to beat the train, especially during rush hour. So not only there's an obstruction, they're focused on the trains, they're not focused on pedestrian or trail users, runners, walkers, cyclists. And they're also coming downhill when they're coming down here, so they're accelerating a bit. Most of the time they just fly across, and very, very dangerous. Coming back up, crossing over Washington, when they do have a full view, there's really no obstructions here. But as soon as they make that right or left onto Washington, from Washington to cross over, they're right on the train tracks. So essentially, they also fly across because if they were to stop, they're going to stop on the train tracks. These particular intersections, like I said, very dangerous to trail users. So getting rid of the wall here on Cherry Street, which is a big obstruction, and making these streets one way. For trail users, I know me personally, that would decrease my anxiety by like 50%, because when I'm going across, I'll just know one direction to look from and not do this the whole time. Lastly, adding stop signs to Cherry, and this is Poplar. Yeah. So that when cars are coming down, they'll see the stop sign. Worst case scenario, they'll at least just slow down. Even if they roll through it, it'll be much better than it is now when they're just coming down and flying through.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Aren't there stop signs for people on the trail before you cross?
Correct.
There, yeah, is it?
Yes.
You're supposed to stop?
Yes.
Well, the bikes particularly, before they cross over a street?
Yes.
But do we have the right of way though, as
No.
pedestrians?
Crosswalks as well, so it's a bit of an ambiguous
Yes.
situation as to who is the right of way.
I'm going to state that I believe that the pedestrians have as much responsibility as the drivers on that, just for, not that we're saying you're wrong, and it's not a concern, but you do, yes. Go ahead, Mia.
Okay.
Do you have another question?
No, I just wanted to clarify that because I don't use the trail very often, so I couldn't remember.
Okay.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So my name is Mark Petrosky. We're all members of the Conshohocken Running Club at least 3 times a week. So I generally agree with everything Christy had to say. I would just like to add that the next intersection down Harry Street, there's a similar situation where there is a stop sign for the cars going towards the train station, but it's also a much busier traffic intersection where a lot of people from the Tower Bridge buildings are trying to hurry across the train tracks, and that creates a big hazard for runners as well, because the cars are flying across the train tracks trying to get to the light. A lot of cars block the train tracks at rush hour. That would be my other concern. So I think there's been proposals for like more flashing lights and more signage and that type of thing there. So that would be all I have to add.
The only thing I have to add, and I forget which one it is, I think it might be this one, but there's one where, to your point about like, it's more of a visibility issue where you can be stopped, but you're not really able to see past like whatever building is there, so like you would just start up again and then there'd be a car that you wouldn't even know it.
Which intersection are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think
I think it's cherry.
Okay.
I think it's cherry.
Cherry's
Yeah.
the wall, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
cherry.
cherry.
All right.
Yeah, has
Kinda
that,
distorted
has
with
that
the
big
map.
wall.
But yeah, there's that one where the visibility is kind of an issue.
Yeah, and
So-
I would say, sorry.
That's okay. I was just wondering who the wall, what the wall is, and is it private property?
It's to a property, it's to a property.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
Probably private property.
It probably is. Certainly, administration can look to see what
Yes,
the
I mean,
wall is, but.
we can check on that. I mean, certainly if it's someone's private property, we can't make them take it down. But it's something we can look at as we can look at the traffic patterns. Changing streets to one-way is a little complicated. It is not something that can be done easily by any means, as we have been studying doing that in other areas of the borough. You gonna? Sure. You need to come up and state your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Liesl Hall. I am a resident of Riverwalk at Millennium, and I do agree that I cross all of those roads all the time. It's our only exit over the tracks, and I do agree that it is a very dangerous situation with trying to watch out for the trains, other cars, and the pedestrians and bikers on the trail. I've used the trail myself. However, I do disagree with changing those to one-ways going down, because during traffic or during rush hour times, we only will then have those two exits that are already very congested to get out of. So I do agree with more signage and such, but
Right.
yes, those one-ways would be extremely difficult.
Right, and that's why I was saying that traffic studies, they do take a while, and they're very complicated. It doesn't mean we won't consider looking at it either. And I know that all of council is very concerned for the safety of all the residents. A lot of the things are not for the trail, are more controlled by the county.
Yeah, especially the trees and bushes.
That is, and I am aware that we have reached out to the county,
We
correct?
have, and we will continue to do so, and part of what we've promised as administration is after, we knew that you were coming, we were excited to hear what you had to say, and we will relay. Some of the things that are being proposed are things that the borough, for example, our traffic engineer, if we wanted to consider that, would have to take a look at it and determine how the patterns would affect the rest of the borough, because we have a more complex traffic system than you would expect in the borough, just because of the volume. With respect to any other items that you guys have along the trail that you would like us to take back to the county, that is something that we would be interested in hearing, because we will take it back. And we can do so in a way that you guys are very organized with how you've presented this, which I appreciate. And that's how we would go about presenting it to the county, is one voice for all of you. So is there anything, I know some concerns were raised last time, but anything we need to know with respect to the trail aside from the issues that you've addressed up there? Or are those the major issues?
So would the stop signs be something that the borough could do without the county's permission?
The stop signs, if they're on our streets, right, that's something that we can do, but again, it's something that our traffic engineer and also our public works department and our police would need to look at to see if it's actually warranted. But what I mean by that is not warranted in terms of whether or not your concerns are legitimate, but warranted in terms of how they do traffic analysis, that's all. It's, yeah.
One thing that I'd like to add is I think, the ideas that are presented are ideas.
Yep, absolutely. And those are the concerns that we've taken to the county already, so we appreciated that.
Yeah. I think the main thing that we're all worried about really is just visibility, not only for vehicles, but also for pedestrians and bikers. I think that's really what it boils down to. Can we see the thing that's coming at us? Stop signs will help that, and certainly if we took down some obstructions, that would help that. Anything that you guys...
What are those little P's up there next to the stop signs?
The P's, parking lots. You want to do parking.
Oh, no parking,
10
probably?
feet of the trail. Yeah,
Is there something on Poplar that's obstructing that would help with that?
That's, yes, Poplar. The doctor detail, yeah. Their cars are parked very close to the trail.
They're
They're like prompting.
Legally, you're
Oh,
not.
peas, I mean.
No, I know.
Jeez.
We're addressing that doctor
Okay.
detail.
So I think, I don't think you hit on that earlier, and if you did, I'm sorry I missed it, but one of the things you're suggesting is no parking within 10 feet of the trail, right? Is that what you just said? Okay. And you have a very good advocate in the mayor. He's been working closely with us, so we will continue to work on it. And you can continue to come and make sure that we are.
Thank you.
So when do you just run during the weekend or at nights?
At nights and weekends.
Okay.
During rush
They
hours.
run all the time.
All the time, yeah.
For the, so for the cars coming down the hill across the trail, that's kind of all the time, because there's
Yeah.
constantly cars coming down those roads.
I don't want to talk about the bikers, but they're pretty dangerous too. They're pretty fast down that trail.
And the skaters.
Yeah, those bikers.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Can you leave this for us?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, well presented.
Well done.
Thank you, council.
Thank you very much.
Were the three roads that were mentioned, were they one-way at some point in the last few years?
Can we?
No.
Mr. Sokolowski?
No, they were two-way, actually.
There have always been two-way, okay.
Poplar was one way for a while.
Poplar?
Yes.
That was recently, when they changed
Yeah.
that in the last,
Last
like,
few years.
yeah.
What? Poplar?
Lieutenant Metz, do you
Poplar?
recall?
Familiar to me.
What?
I think it was just the 100 going from Elm to Washington, that was one way, I think, and then it
It doesn't
recently.
take a right at the machine.
Yeah, that's what it was,
Yeah.
yeah, now you can, I think when Pitt was started there, that's when they changed it.
Mr. Cheney, do you have any more public comment? Would you like to come up? Okay. Stacy, you have public comment? Come on up. State your name and address.
Good evening, Stacy Elam, 334 West 10th Avenue. I'm here on behalf of a couple of my neighbors. There were a couple issues that arose, and they know I come to the meeting, so they let me know what was going on. A couple weeks ago, they had the 5K that went through town. It started at Sutcliffe Park, ended at Sutcliffe Park, went through the streets. A couple of the residents on our block tried to leave during the race, but towards the end of the race, and the Conshohocken Fire Police would not let them off the block. They were stuck. The 200 and 300 block had no place to go, no way to get out. They're one-way streets. The race went around those blocks, and they wouldn't have had a problem. There was no notification about the race. There were signs up, but there was no notification of the route to the residents or that they weren't going to be able to get out. If they would have gotten some sort of letter or notice, they would have moved their cars to the 400 block and then just walked down and got in their cars. They had places to go. They had children to pick up. So that was something they wanted you guys to know. If that's something that you can forward along to whoever was in charge of that.
Thank you, we appreciate that, and Lieutenant Metz, I think next year we can do something to address that in notifications before the run, correct? Okay.
I don't know which particular fire police officer was there, but he was pretty belligerent and rude as well. So I'm not sure who that was.
We can also check into that, too.
Where exactly?
It was 10th and Wood at the bottom of the 300 block. It was a gentleman in his maybe mid-50s, early 60s, they said. The second point was my neighbor asked me what was going on with the Marywood Park House, because Conshohocken High School Alumni Association was notified that they could no longer hold their meetings at the Marywood Park House. And I know that you guys had talked about some renovations, but they said that they were no longer going to be allowed to hold their Alumni Association meetings there.
And I think they were given probably a 6-month notice or so for that. The plan is we are going to renovate. When we renovate, everyone was given notice that they can't.
Correct. I didn't know if there was something that or an alternate place where they could be housed, because they're obviously using the Borough facility. I didn't know if there was a room at the Fellowship House or even here at Borough Hall.
Right,
They could hold meetings. They're a
or maybe the-
nonprofit, they don't have the money to
Or maybe the library.
pay for space, or the library.
They could reach out, I would say, to Stephanie.
Okay.
Who will help assist them in finding somewhere to move while the renovations are going on. That's what we've been doing with other organizations.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Perfect, thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Stephanie.
appreciate it.
Geez, Stacy. Get the name right. Any more public comment? Okay. Mr. Stokely?
Yeah, I just have a couple things. Again, I want to talk about parking. Again, we have the stop sign problem. And yesterday, being on the polls, I had some residents coming to me from my ward that they're actually having parking arguments. And one of the people, the person was talking to me, was telling me how there's so many cars on the street. But after I thought about it, she has 2 cars on the street that been sitting there for almost 3 months. So, I mean, they got tags on them, but I was talking to Mike, we have to figure out a way that we just have to get these cars removed, or they have to sell them, or if they're extra cars or trucks or whatever. I don't know how we do that, Mike.
You and I will think it through.
All right. I mean, there's just parking's getting really, we have to try to even maybe line our streets, because people don't park proper.
Right.
I mean, I think we really need to.
Maybe we can
focus
schedule that on one of our working meetings, and then if it's something that we all decide that needs to be done, we could plan on it for next year's budget to do that, at least in some areas to start with. But again, we'll have to remember how to do that along with the paving, so we don't paint and then pave over.
We've done that already.
Yes, and we do not want to do that, so.
I think we did Spring Mill Avenue 5 times.
Right. Ms. Barton?
Nothing.
Ms. Sokolowski? Mr. Griffin? Mr. Tino?
Just information as far as an update that the borough has requested PennDOT to evaluate the restriction of heavy trucks on West Elm Street, and this request has been placed to PennDOT.
Thank you very much. Thank everyone for coming in, all the people for the trails. We do appreciate all your input, and we will really try to look into that and do the best we can for all the residents. Did I forget? Oh, he was first. Do you have more comments?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When I asked you, we went to the,
I saw some hands raised. So
yes, we
Yeah.
went to the questions.
I thought you were done.
There's always more. So this is a shot from our neighborhood streets cleanup a couple weeks ago. We had 50-plus volunteers come out, and we found out all across the east side of town. And Public Works was super amazing for coming out and helping us to collect all the trash and weigh it, which came out to 940 pounds. So pretty amazing, and we had a lot of local organizations like the Rotary Club, the Running Club, Brunch, the Brewing Company, the Kiwanis Club participating. So hopefully we can keep this going for more years. So thank you everyone that participated. And we have to kick off the art show, which is on June 2nd. We're having a little mini art show at Coyote Crossing on May 29th. So I'm inviting the public and inviting council to come to Coyote Crossing. Free food and free looks at these amazing artists. One is he's actually West Conshohocken, born and raised, but he's a military vet, and he's done quite a bit of charity work in town, so we're honoring him. And I think a lot of you know Michael Gray, who has taken pictures for a lot of our events recently, and with the 5K. So come check them out, and that'll kick us to the Arts Festival on June 2nd, which is going to be noon to 5 p.m. We are still taking applications for arts, crafts, and food vendors. So you can check out the flyer. You can contact me, email me, The borough also has information on how to apply and become a vendor. And then the last thing, which I actually do not have a poster on, the Ambucks Restaurant Rally is this Sunday at 12 to 4:30 p.m. You can register at the Gap. It's $60, and all proceeds will benefit the Special Olympics, and Ambucks works with them. So we're expecting a really nice turnout for that. That's it.
Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.